Hello and welcome to Model Aviation Live. I'm your host, Jay Smith, Executive Editor of Model Aviation Magazine. Today, I actually had the pleasure of trying a new restaurant. I just want to share this for anybody that might visit AMA. So I got to try a brand new restaurant, and I also got to get a ride to the restaurant and back in a Ford Model T. So that was a nice change of pace, driving in an old vehicle that does 35 miles an hour. So the restaurant is called Little Chicago's, and by the name you probably realize it's deep dish pizza and Italian. It just opened about a month ago. So just sharing, today was my first time eating there. So I know our guest that we'll bring out shortly is going to be in Muncie next week for a free flight event. So I just wanted to share, if you're looking for somewhere new to eat, if you visit Muncie, Little Chicago's was a great place today to eat. I also want to give you an update. In Model Aviation, we had where Derek Micco and the magazine gave you, the readers, the chance to pick his next project. And while the voting was close, you all picked the Corsair as his next project. Well, I'm excited to tell you that as of earlier this week, he has finished it. Not only has he designed it, he's built it. And as we speak, he is test flying it. And I will share with you, even though it's a smaller model, it has folding wings and it also has rotating retracts. So given the size, around 32-inch wingspan, I think that's pretty exciting. Obviously, the plan is to give options to build it with or without the folding wing and with or without the retracts. But I just wanted to give everyone an update that it's been fully designed. A model has been built, and as we speak, it's being test flown. So look for that in the not too distant future. Speaking of designs and plans, if you haven't heard, sadly, Wendell Hostetler has passed away. If you don't recognize that name, he has been known for giant scale plans for many, many years. I think he attended the Toledo show in Toledo, Ohio for about 40 years. So we just received word in just the last few days, unfortunately, that he passed away. So I want to bring out our guest, which is Tom Heman. You may know that name because he is a columnist, a free flight columnist. He's also wrote several articles for the magazine. So let's go ahead and bring out Tom. Hi, Tom.
Hey there, Jay. How you doing?
I'm good. So I wanted to start this off with a quick story. So Tom, in his, if you want to call it a day job, is a illustrator and an artist, and he has done multiple book covers. And it was last year, wasn't it, Tom, when your plane went in the corn?
Yeah.
So last year, Tom was here in Muncie competing in an event, and unfortunately his airplane went into a corn. If you've read the article Lost in the Corn, you know the story that I'm about to share. So I got involved in helping Tom find his airplane, and my wife as well. She happened to be there because she wanted to see some free flight, and we were right at the edge of the corn, and Tom looks over at us and kind of smiles, and he says, "Did I ever tell you I illustrated the cover for Children of the Corn?" And for some reason at that point, my interest in going into the corn lessened, even though I know it's a fiction book. My interest because I've seen that movie. It's a horror movie if you're not familiar. And so here on the screen are some of the covers, some of the mini covers that Tom has done the artwork or illustrations on. He also has done work on what I used to love growing up, which was like choose your own adventure, where you'd read a book and it would get to a key choice and you would turn to a different page depending on the choice you would make. And Tom illustrated a whole series of those books. Remind me, Tom, what were they called?
The series was called Dragon Tales.
Dragon Tales. So Tom did all the covers on those, as well as what you see on screen, as well as many more. So obviously the majority of what we want to talk about, Tom, is free flight. But I do think that people watching would be interested to learn a little bit more. So when did you get interested in art, and how did that interest lead into becoming a book cover artist and illustrator?
Yeah, well, like most kids, art was always around. So I love show and tell. So when I was in high school on my senior year, it was April of my senior year, and I was in an art major class, and the teacher said, "So you're going to be an art major next year?" And I said, "No, I'm graduating." And that caught him by surprise. So he said, "So where are you going to school?" And I said, "I don't have any plans. No one in my family ever went to college. This was early 70s, and it wasn't the normal thing to do necessarily." So he said, "Well, okay, go down to the guidance office, stay there until you find a school, and give me your parents' phone number, because I need to call them tonight to make sure that they're on board, because you need to get to art school. So I ended up going to Kutztown State University from 73 to 77, and learned about illustration, was really all about it. And so my first book was in 79. It was called Camouflage and Deception Techniques of World War II. And from there, I've probably done, I don't know, maybe 1,800 book covers for maybe 400 different authors. And it's just like show and tell, except now they pay me for it. So it's pretty cool. I feel really fortunate to be selected to do this by many publishing houses. So yeah, it's been a great career.
Have you ever done a book cover that had an airplane on it?
Maybe some of the Cusslers. I know there were a couple that were, airplanes, like theirs on the Cussler on the left side there, right in the middle. It was underwater. So there's I think a DC-3 or something that I found underwater wreckage. And but nothing like, actually there was another one too. There were a few in the late 90s, I believe. I'm blanking on the name of the author, but the art director that I worked with for 26 years, Jim Plimeri, he was with Bantam and Random House. He knew my love for aviation. So if anything had that theme, he would send it my way. So when you do 1,600 book covers, it's kind of hard to remember
Sure.
them all, so.
And, I think viewers would be interested. Could you talk just a little bit about how, for you, but not just you, a lot of artists and illustrators, could you talk about how you went from doing, art like drawing and painting to now that you're doing digital art? And digital art, could you talk about that shift?
Yeah. I feel really fortunate to have grown up through the business when I did, because back then, through the 70s, 80s, 90s, to the late 90s, you needed to do a pencil sketch, and then you would get the pencil sketch approved, and it would go straight to the painting. And rarely did you have the painting changed in any way. But that created a foundation, I think, that was really important for any illustrator, for any artist. And then when things went digital, it was like suddenly I could recreate what I did with the paintbrush, and then go well beyond that. I could do what I did. It would take me 3 weeks to do a painting, and I could do that in 3 or 4 days digitally. So suddenly, with 3 kids in college, the income went up nicely at the perfect time. So, the art god really took care of me in that regard. So, but yeah, I think that my art now, the digital work, still has a feeling in many cases that it was more of an illustrated, painted type thing rather than just a pure photograph. Some surely are just photographs retouched, but other things have a more illustrative approach to them. And I think I was really fortunate to have that foundation, with a paintbrush. But that was 20 years digital, and more than 20 years digital, but 20 years as a traditional painter. But I really don't miss mixing paints. And it's a laborious technique, so imagine painting grass all day long, or clouds, that could take days and days. And now it's just a snap of a picture and feather it in there and then put everything else together. So yeah, it came at the perfect time.
You also mentioned to me if they wanted some type of minor change to your artwork. Obviously, it's much easier now digitally.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And in fact, now, like the Unbroken cover there were 5 different versions of that in various colors. It went through a gray color, a silver, and a couple of different blue hues, like the piece next to it, like in those tones, but they ended up on the golden color for it. So that's really not uncommon. Can I see that in blue? Can I see that in green? And imagine trying to do that back in the day. It's like impossible. They would have to do it photographically, I think, somehow. But yeah, it was simpler times, but it's kind of more exciting now with all that we can create. It's just really exciting that you can pretty much do anything. Yeah.
Are you an avid reader, or do you find yourself too busy to read?
I never was a reader. As a kid, if the book didn't have pictures in it, I wasn't going to read probably. But just in the recent couple years, I started picking up the books that I did covers for, because rarely do you get the book to read prior to you doing the cover, quite frankly. It's months ahead of time. And many times all you have is a single page, a few paragraphs from the author, and you can go on that. So you rarely get to read the book. But lately I've been going back, like I'm reading Pachinko now, and really enjoying it. I wanted to dive into Game of Thrones, but I haven't gone there yet. But yeah, I'm starting to become a reader, and it's like, oh, imagine that, a book cover artist. He's a reader now. He reads books. Yeah.
And you're also at least somewhat a watch collector.
Well, and as are you, I see. And I don't have one on now, otherwise I would show you. But yeah, I came across that Mr. Jones from London. Oh my gosh, they're watches for the artist. I think they're just beautifully constructed and crafted, and they have a little quirkiness to them, and that just really fit my style. So go to Mr. Jones watches and just bask. It's just, I mean, they're not cheap, but they're not expensive either. When you think watches, you've certainly known how big watches can go and expensive and all that. But
Yeah.
I just couldn't help it. It's like I had to have this watch, and they're awfully nice gifts for my boys when they graduated from college and such. It's like, oh, this is unique.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I found out about them from you because they had a pinball watch with
That's
robots playing pinball.
Imagine that
On a watch. Yeah, it's
How can you
unusual.
resist that? How can you resist that?
Right. It's unusual subject matter sometimes they have on their watch, which makes it neat. It's different. So, but ultimately, the main thing we want to talk about is free flight, and you are one of our free flight columnists. And you also, as we talked earlier, you shared a new video with me today. You do a lot of videos on YouTube, taking people through the journey of building and trimming models or being at Geneseo. And so you had a tow line glider video you shared with me today that I literally just got today and watched today. And, as I said to you earlier, I really like your videos. I think it really brings the joy and excitement, and it just grounds you to all that's cool about our hobby. So I know you provided us a bunch of pictures, so maybe we'll start with the pictures, then we'll move on to the videos. So let's kind of go through some of the pictures you shared and talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, this is part of my fleet from back in 2018. This is what I took to the FAC Flying Aces Club Nats in Geneseo that year. There might be 30 models there, and chances are I flew nearly all of them. So I was in serious competition mode that year for sure. But yeah, they're everything from peanut aircraft, which are 13-inch models, up to mega size, which is the Nicholas Beasley, the big orange aircraft in the middle. That's a 54-inch model. And I've flown that at Muncie. And there's a film on my Max Fly Art channel on YouTube that shows this flying over the far south end of the field, but it's up so high it has a camera on top also. So it shows, you can see all the way to the AMA museum. It's just so cool, because I've always wondered what it looked like from their vantage point. I mean, we all kind of must think that, right? Like, what does it look like being one of our models? And when these little key fob type cameras became available, they're only like 18 grams, and you can stick them on your airplane, and they shoot high def. And oh my gosh, it just brings a whole different thing. So there's a number of films on my channel that show that, and a few of the aircraft have them on, including the one directly in front of it, the twin there. That's a MiG DIS, MiG 5. I put the camera on that. That's a 36-inch model. And then on the right, I guess on the left side, though, the red jet there, that's the Pulky. Argentine jet that also has had a camera on top. It definitely changes the aerodynamics, and you have to adjust for that. But boy, once they get going, it's just a real ride that I've enjoyed tapping into every once in a while. In fact, one of my old time rubber jobs, which none of them are here because I really wasn't into it yet, Earl Stahl Hurricane, had a camera on that, just happened to fly it one day at Wawayanda, New York, and I had the camera pointing backwards toward the rear. And it was a boomer flight. It was getting way up there on a thermal, and all of a sudden a young falcon started getting very curious and started chasing it and sort of doing strafing runs past it. And I'm down below filming with my other camera, zooming in and out and almost hyperventilating because I know what I'm getting here. This has never happened to me, to have a bird that close. And so finally the DT popped and it came down and the bird lost interest. But when I got home, I couldn't wait to get home to see what I had. And he had 3 or 4 passes, and he was coming in like that. He would come in with his claws, just, and then he would go to the side and go to the side. It was all just, totally lucky that I had that experience that day, and the camera was pointed backwards. Otherwise, if it was facing forward, it wouldn't have gotten me very much at all. But so I made a film of that too, of course. So anyway, it's all out there. Just search Max Fly Art and Falcon. You'll see it right away. So there it is.
Yeah.
There he comes. Look at that. Incredible. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. I think, look at this one. I love this World War I model right here.
Yeah, that's the Airco DH2.
Yeah.
It's now in the AMA Museum as part of their peanut display. I think the last I flew it was in 2014. I think I brought it up in 2015 or so. And it started out, it was designed originally, the model was designed by Ulysses Alvarez from, I'm not going to say Uruguay or Argentina. Sorry about that. But through Bill Hannon, he led me to Ulysses Alvarez. And so I took his plan, and which was originally a rubber power plan. So you would have a motor stick out the front and then rubber from the prop to the rear. So you had 2 motors going at the same time, spinning this prop in the middle. I got it to fly. I might have gotten 40 seconds out of it, but I thought, okay, let's switch it up. So I put CO2 in it the next year. And I got maybe 70 seconds, and that was really tricky. It was not very satisfying. And then eventually I switched it to electric, like a Kenway. This is going back before LiPo batteries and such became popular. And it flew really, really well. And in fact, the first time it was at Muncie, it must have gotten up to 500 feet. And because of the torque that it has, it's so much torque. You have to allow for it with gurney flaps and other things to prevent it from going so hard to the left, or to the right. And then when it finally dies off, it spirals straight in. So from 500 feet, this thing came spiraling in and landed on the softest grass that Muncie had, I think. And it wasn't damaged at all. It was like miraculous. So that's one of the best memories I have of it. But yeah, it's one of my favorite models, and I feel honored to have it there at the AMA Museum. Yeah. And that's a Blériot 25, a pusher canard, designed by Don Schroll, a 19-inch plan. It only weighs 13.5 grams, I think. It's very light. I'll be flying it this next week, probably at Muncie. But it's a beautiful flyer. I had another one with Harriet Quimby at the helm. She was the pilot, but I flew it down in North Carolina, and hooked a thermal, and went toward the sun and didn't look back. It was specked out 1,000 or 2,000 feet. So I had to build another one, and it's just a joy to fly. So I know a number of guys have flown them indoors. It's a really good flying model. So you can build it so light, and you can put a really long motor in it. So it's a good one. Yeah. And this is the Boeing 306C pusher twin flying wing. It's a concept plane. There's a series of Boeing concept designs. They're on the web, and a friend of mine had the single engine version, and I thought, boy, what would a twin be like? So that's my granddaughter Zinnia. She was 9 years old here, and it's let's see, it's 44 inches, 43 inches. And to my surprise, it flies quite well. It's been a challenge sometimes because of the spiral instability, but through the recommendation of a few friends, I put a clear plastic nose on it, or a fin on the front, and then the rudders now wobble. They're not stationary. So they just flap a bit, and the stability is by that little shark fin on the front. It's not in this picture here, but in more recent films, it's there. And that has stabilized it so that it doesn't, when it goes up, and then it finishes its power, and it doesn't spiral back down. It corrects itself and stays up in the air. So that's all I wanted. So, but what a miraculous plane to actually see coming together and actually flying. I'm really proud of this one. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at that thing coming around. It just, I just wanted to see it do one circle. That would have been success for me. And on the very first day, it flew for 70 seconds and was
Wow.
chased by a couple of buzzards. And I was just like, okay, this is something else. This has potential. Its best flight today is around 1:50. It got way up there on some air, and then it took 7 circles till it finally came down. But yeah, it's surprisingly stable. Yeah. Thanks for showing that. And this is this year's project, another bizarro plane, the Brunelli Loadmaster lifting body. This particular one was never built. There on the web, there were a series of concept pencil sketches from 1947 on the Secret Projects website. And I was looking for the one that had the best layout for rubber. Most of them had the cockpit between the props, and that to me would have limited the prop size. So I found one that had shoulder wing and the cockpit on the left side. And so it swings, I think 9-inch props. It's about 37-inch span. And it flies really well, to my surprise. I mean, it's just shocking again. What's great fun with like the Flying Aces Club is we can fly models in competition that were concept designs. We just have to support it somehow with documentation, with review, or photos or artist renderings and such. And to have something like this, and also the Blériot 25, to fly better than what the original flew. Like the Blériot 25, I don't even know if he ever built that and actually flew it. There's like one photo that looks a little suspicious. It almost looks like an artist rendering. So I don't even know if it flew. And this one never flew, although one similar to it did. And there's films that are really incredible, but they looked really stable. And this guy here is really strong in the air, and he looks great coming around. I mean, that shot on top by one of my buddies at Wawayanda, Pete Kateris, he shot this thing coming past, and oh my gosh. So yeah, when I see this plane fly, it speaks to everything I ever wanted to do in flying, designing a model that was never built before, never flown before, and now it soars. That to me is the buzz that's really well worth the time invested. Okay, yeah, this is the Flying Aces Moth. It's a beginner's model. I think it was designed in the late 30s, early 40s, and it's the subject of an article that's coming out. I guess it's coming out next month. In your what's the issue? Your builder's issue?
Yeah, that's the October issue.
Oh, okay. And again, I just wanted to create a tutorial that showed start to finish, a trim session all the way. And I was able to be up at Wawayanda on a day that was very calm, and it was early in the season, so there weren't crops surrounding it, and there was a nice grassy field there. And it's a great first model for anybody interested in free flight rubber. I would suggest they get some skills with a model like this before you go and get a P-38. You know, don't jump into some big scale project and think you're going to get it to fly. Even with a kit, I would not recommend that, because more than likely you're going to be really disappointed by first flights. It's not going to fly as you expected. This model is very forgiving, and it also teaches you how to trim. It's very reactive to every movement you make on the tail surface, on the thrust line, even moving the wing fore and aft. It's just a great model. And my granddaughter Zinnia is the pilot, so I knew it had to fly. So that's what the ZZ is on there for. I call it Zinnia's Moth. That's her. Zinnia is her nickname, ZZ. Whew, boy. I wanted to build a model that was really well detailed. This is a peanut. This was on the cover of Model Aviation quite a few years ago. And I liked that my hand was in there to really suggest the size of this model. But it's a Mitsubishi 1MF1. And it was the first Japanese Navy aircraft to fly off a ship. And I think it was a group from England came over to help to design this and to have it all come together. But yeah, I think this details the beauty of the hobby right here, all the simplicity of what we do, all the little projects within a project that all come together to create this one, I'm proud of, beautiful model. But what's beautiful about the hobby is that, you know, I can be working in the kitchen on, I don't know, on the wheels, on the struts, and over the course of a month or so, this thing comes together. And there's no stress, you know, it's just you and the model in balsa and a sanding stick. And it's just, it's great therapy. I think a lot of people early COVID discovered my channel on YouTube because they all wanted to, what do we do now? We're in our house. We're locked into our home. And they discovered my channel. And it's like, oh my gosh, I did that when I was a kid. But look how it flies. Mine never flew like that. But they can all fly like that, is the way I feel. And you can all build like that if you just jump in and start building. So, you know, I like to show pictures like this because this shows it all. It's not just the model by itself. It shows all the different pieces that come together, and many pieces, but yeah. Yeah, this, I had ignored tow line gliding since I was a kid. One of my first build-up models was the Thermic Trooper. I think anybody my age built one or wanted to build one, along with all the other Chuck gliders that Thermic and Jetco had. And then I built an Earl Stahl Schweizer TG2, I think it was. It was an article that he had from Model Airplane News, I think, back in the early 40s. So I built that at the size that he had it. But then I wanted to go to the max size in FAC competition, which is 36 inches. So I designed this Schweizer 2-22. And it's the one design event or aircraft for the FAC Nats this year, and it's also going to be flown at Muncie next week. George Bredehoff at Valari did the short kit for it, so it's available there. All the links are on my channel to guide people toward that. But I swear, everyone that I've seen fly from the short kit is flying better than my model, which I'm thrilled by, but I'm also frustrated by. Come on. I mean, I did the prototype. It's got to fly, right? And it does fly nicely, but it doesn't seem to keep up with the other guys. And that's okay. I'm going to take that as a badge of honor, I guess. But yeah, this is the one that I just filmed last week and posted last night. What a great flying plane. I mean, it's just so much fun to fly tow line. You can do it by yourself if you have a grassy field that you can see in the films that I just pull it right off the carpet. But if you have two guys, it really helps. And then you can also do it with a high start. In FAC, we use 64 feet of line, 10 to 20 pound test. And that's with the tow line. But if you're doing high start, it's only 25 feet of 1/16 inch strand, a single strand, not a loop, but a strand of 1/16 inch rubber attached to 125 feet cord. And then you pull it back, and then it arcs it all the way up. And that's another approach. It's just that when you let it go with the high start, it's going to go where it wants to go. You can't correct. You can't walk it in or release it, or let outline as you can when you're reeling it in. So I would suggest to anybody, start out with tow line with a reel or a winch of some sort. I have one that I made that I have a YouTube video on how to make it with some adjustments to it to make it even better. So check those out. It's pretty cheap stuff. So, but yeah, it's just a beautiful part of the hobby that's totally separate from rubber. Although, all the same things that you need to get a model flying with rubber, it all plays into this too. But I would suggest you make sure you have a DT on it, because it's going to get up there and you're going to be glad that you get it back. Yeah. Yeah. That's Waterman Aerobeel, another 13-inch model. Again, I tried to fly it with rubber, and it did, but it was disappointing. So I put a little pager motor into it with a LiPo battery, and it grooves. It was a beautiful flyer. I haven't flown it lately because I've just sort of moved on through my fleet. But yeah, that was my daughter's hand holding the bones stuff. My friend Jiro Sugimoto, Japan, he often took pictures of his models, his peanuts, on his hand. So I just thought I would do the same.
To give it a sense of scale, right?
Yeah. That's what it's all about. But yeah, this, what I think my eyes 20 years ago were a bit better than they are now, and it was just a really enjoyable piece or project to see it come together. When it finally started to groove, it was just incredible. It's all about getting the right elevon angle and the CG where it needs to be. And once you get that, it just followed the torque, and it was just so circle and circle and circle. And the birds, the wrens and swallows loved this plane. They loved to chase it. Yeah. And that's Zinnia flying the Thermic Trooper. I built that in 4 days, I think. And on the 5th day, we went up to Wawayanda, and there's a film of her flying it and chasing it. And the film says it all. It's this young girl learning how to do a reel, and she listens to my instruction. It's it's like, let go, slow, now wind hard. Like, okay. She's very good with it. Oh, I just love it. And that's the first day. That's the first day we had that thing up there. And she's just watching it from where she reeled it in. And I might have just yelled, go get it. And it's coming soon. Yeah, it had its issues with CG, but it was still flying. Go get it. This part here where she takes her hat off and gets into better motion. Come on, I got to get right there. That says it all. Really. I mean, it's the joy of a kid and the love of flight and her first experience with it. I mean, she did that. She's 8.5 years old right there. And she just did that. So, yeah.
Does she still fly?
Yeah, she comes out with me from time to time. Next time we're going to be going out with the Moth, and she's going to learn how to wind up a motor and release it. Maybe I can get her to really wind it up and have her ROG for the first time. That would be some intense winding because you got to wind at pretty heavy torque. But as it is now, I'll just put a few hundred turns into it and let her get to understand that. I think she's equally as excited to drive the golf cart to chase. When the planes go way, way far away, she discovered a golf cart last time she was there, and she says, "Oh, this is fun." So she says, "Pop, can we go back up there? And is the golf cart going to be there?" So, yeah. This is part of what the Flying Aces is all about. Their contests are not only duration events and scale judged events, but they're also mass launches, which are very exciting. This goes back to, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago at Wawayanda. It was the entire weekend was 1 to 3 miles an hour. It was just glorious. I think we had 25 people in the World War I mass launch or World War II mass launch, and so you might have 25 guys, and in the first round, let's say there's going to be 5 rounds. The first round you're going to drop out 5. Next round, another 5. You keep going down until you get to the final 3. And each time you're winding your rubber a little bit more, try to beat the other guy, and last guy down wins. So it might take 45 minutes to an hour, but 6 feet apart, yeah, it's all good stuff. And we'll be flying a lot of them this coming week at Muncie. This is what got me into the hobby more recently, late 80s. I was at my parents' house on Easter, 1987 maybe, and in our cubbyhole upstairs, I was just rooting around for old stuff, and I found a box of old photographs. And inside the box was that yellowed envelope. And inside of that was everything else that you see here, except for the picture of the bones picture there. That's actually the plan beneath all those photos. It's called the Hydra Avian MB. My dad, I said, "Dad, what is this?" And he said, "Oh my gosh." He said, "I didn't even know I still had that." It's literally the only thing that he had from his childhood. He had ordered this plan from a hobby shop in Paris, France, in 1936. My dad was 15 years old. And the letter there that they responded to is in the middle there. It's all in French, and it took me years before I could translate it. But he was offering a plan of one of his models, and in turn, he wanted to have a plan from their hobby shop. I don't know where he saw the ad, and I was looking and looking in the magazines for them through that period of time, and I have yet to see it, but somewhere he saw, how would he have known to write to them? So they sent this plan back to him along with this letter and then a 2-page typed catalog. And I said, "Whoa, can I have this?" So of course he gave it to me, and he was into aviation big time. When he was a kid, he and his friend Gordy Robinson would build model airplanes by the dozens. They would go to a hobby shop. They would pay 5 or 10 cents. They would build the models, and then they would sell them back for $1 or $2 already made. That's how he made his money as a kid. So, all ready to fly way back in 1935 or 6. So he said he built hundreds. I have a few of his friends' models after he passed away, but none of my dad's. But I do have this. So I reached out to Earl Van Gorder in Flying Models magazine, and because I built that model and built the bones, and asked him if he wanted to take my offer. I would make a copy of this plan for anybody for $1, and then another $1 for the mail. It was cheaper back in 1987. So anyway, I ended up selling over 200 of these. Incredible. It was great. But it led me to the Flying Aces because a guy in my town, in Allentown, knew that there was a FAC club, Flying Aces club, named the Skyscalers. So they invited me to their monthly meeting at some guy's house, and my life changed. So I met the Flying Aces, and since then I went to the Flying Aces Nats up at Geneseo, and I've been going there since 1990, almost every year. And I have friends around the world because of this hobby. So I just can't imagine my life without the luck of having found this thing that my dad kept unknowingly for all those years. So, the gods of flight were on my side that day.
Great discovery.
Yeah, well, and that's the finished product. Yeah.
Did your father see you build it? Did he see it get built?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. He passed away in 2014. He was a 102. 102. I'm sorry, 92. And I'm thinking about how old he would be now. He was born in 21. So he saw everything I built, nearly everything in that original page that you showed with the fleet from 2018. He saw nearly everything there. And he would always be the first guy to see me fly or to see the finished product. And I would always bring it down to him. He lived only 25 miles away, so I'd see him every week. So he lived vicariously through my flying in the FACs, and was always a great conversation whenever we would go out to dinner every week for 8 years. I think I did that with him. So after his stroke. Yeah. So
maybe we've reached the end of the models that you shared with us.
Yeah, well, there's a lot more out there, but I talk about my channel, but that's where the channel began, only because I was doing what I did naturally. Ever since I started flying back in 1990, when we had those big old camcorders on our shoulder, the VHS stuff, I would go film my flights just to document the flights and then observe how they flew, and then figure out how else can I correct or improve the flight. That's all it was. I was just, because in the moment, so much is happening and you can't really see it from memory. You can't really figure it out from memory. It's much more difficult. So to have this and just go back and study it, it's really a treat. So that just kept evolving. It was just the thing I would always do. I'd be filming most of my flights so I could just see what they would do and improve upon them. But then when YouTube came along and it was so simple to post things, I just started a channel, and it started out okay. I wasn't looking to do anything miraculous. I just wanted to share with my buddies. I could then send a link to them and they could see it, rather than me trying to somehow send a link over the web, which was really difficult through email. It's just far too big. But again, then when COVID happened, yeah, I think that's where a lot of people discovered it, because guys, women, everybody was searching the web for stuff, and it just tended to skyrocket through that period. And so, yeah, I hope that a lot of guys that were RC guys, I know a couple of my friends were RC guys that did this early on in their lives, and they wanted to try it again and just experience a different side of modeling. And it's peaceful. It's very relaxing to me, and it's grounding to be out there at Wawayanda to experience this world that we live in and the ever-changing sky. I try to capture that. I like to fly in the morning. I love sunset and sunrise flights. It's just, I've never seen models up against a sunrise very often, so it's really wonderful to fly that. And then during COVID, that's when I discovered, through some friends that I fly with, old time rubber, like this model right here. I fly the Gollywalk and the Jabberwock and the Dynamo and the Earl Stahl Hurricane and the Jimmy Allens. These are models that just fly incredibly well, and it's the same buzz. I mean, you just want to see a rubber band power model flying. And if you really want to see it fly with duration and stability, and it doesn't take months and months to build these models, you can build these in a couple of weeks. Look into old time rubber, because you're never going to have something fly as well generally as a scale model. And then once you have a foundation there, then jump over to scale and do what, take it where you want to take it, you know? So yeah, this is the film that marries up with the tutorial on how I built this model, and also with the article that's coming out. So here I'm changing the wing, wash in and wash out, to correct a warp that was in it. And little tricks like that are pretty simple, get you back in the air very quickly. And yeah.
Well, it was one of your videos that kind of led me to the idea of you doing the article, because you went out to the field and kept flying your model and trimming it and flying your model and trimming it like all day until you had it very successful. And I thought, let's capture that experience in a magazine article, and then of course you have the video to go along with it.
Yeah. Well, thanks. It was great timing, because I'd just done this, and I might have shown a flight of this model fully trimmed. Maybe that's what you saw, I'm not sure, but it was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. Then we just tie it in with the film. And then, so through the article, I have each step of the way, each flight that I did in the, like 12 or 14 flights, each one goes through the process, and you go up the ladder with 200 turns, 400 turns, 600, all the way up to 2,000 turns. And each step of the way, you're correcting to avoid bad habits for it, so that it stays stable throughout the entire flight pattern. But you have to do it slowly. That's the way you learn, and that's the way you learn how to correct. You don't wind all the way up to max winds. From the start, you're going to be very disappointed, and it's going to be the quickest way to bail on the hobby, I think, is if you wind too fast, or, I'm sure it's the same in RC. You don't just get out, you have somebody help you learn how to go through the steps of learning how to fly under power, and you go slowly at first. So it's obvious, but not so much obvious for everybody that sees the kit. It's like, oh, I want to just build this and fly it. So
Here's a process. Yeah.
It is process. Yeah.
So you've touched on a few times about that you'll be in Muncie next week. Could you touch a little bit on what that event is, so people that aren't aware are aware?
Yeah, it's Thursday and Friday is the Outdoor Champs. It's a Flying Aces Club contest. And then Saturday and Sunday is virtually the same events, similar events. It's called the Roscoe Turner event. So there's going to be 4 days of flying, and there's going to be duration events for old time rubber and also scale models. And then there's going to be 3 or 4 mass launches every day. So all day long, you're going to be seeing flying. There's going to be tow line gliding happening some part of the field. It's sort of out of the way, hopefully, because the line has to come down and not be run over by golf carts and stuff. So
Yeah.
we have to have a sectioned off area, but we'll work it out. Anybody's welcome to come and just see what we do. It's such a relaxed group of guys. I mean, everybody is really glad to show you what they do and share what they do. We're an open book. And that's what I like so much about the Flying Aces Club. I mean, it's just guys helping guys, girls. We're all just having a great time. And we're as excited to see a friend's model fly well as we are with our own, quite frankly. It's, I've heard guys get more excited about somebody else's model flying than their own. It's just really a great feeling. It's just, and that's right down the flight line. You're going to see that all day long. So, yeah.
And I think I'd mentioned to you earlier before the show, we actually have a small local free flight event going on right now, today, tomorrow, and Sunday. So, it's always, almost any weekend or even during the week, you can come out to AMA and see all kinds of flying going on. But the event next week is always fun. I always like to come out and see some of the flying and some really beautiful aircraft. And like you said, everybody's very welcoming and friendly. So yeah, if people are in the area,
it's really my favorite field. It used to be Geneseo, and then I have Wawayanda, which is about a mile by a half mile and surrounded of sod, and then it's surrounded by corn and other crops. That's only 2 hours from me, so that's really my go-to field. It's where I can do all these flying days that I have. I just love it. And Geneseo is great too, but when I first went to Muncie back in 2010, it was like, holy cow, look at this place, And then you have the bucket list thing of the museums right there.
Yes.
It's like, if you're there for a few days and one of the days is windy or rainy, there's no loss. You just go right over to the museum and you're immediately 10 years old. So everything that you saw as a kid and then some, or what your dad did as a kid, you're going to see that there too. So yeah, those window displays for all the different companies that, sold us all of our kits and such, those are brilliant. They're just incredible. And then you get to see, of course, all the models and trophies and who knows what. But yeah, it's my favorite place, and it's worth the 10 hours and 600 miles that I will be going next Tuesday. It's well worth it. So I look forward to it every year. Yeah. And ice cream at night. That's the kicker. It's a few places in Muncie that do really well with that. So
yeah. So how's the column going? I get a lot of good feedback. Are you enjoying sharing? You share with your videos. We talked about that, but how do you feel about writing the column?
I'm enjoying it. I mean, at first when I was approached, it was like, do I really want to do this? Do I want to commit my time? But if I looked at my life, it's pretty much what I do anyways. It's like when I go to a contest, my routine would be to write about it and send it out. In fact, I have a journal. My maxflyart.com has 2 journals from 2016 and 2018. And those are like, I don't know, almost 4,000 words and many photos and many films and such. So when I really thought about it, I was like, yeah, we are at that point in our lives where my mentors are sadly leaving us, and it's time for my generation to pick it up and give it back. So it was perfect for me. I'm really enjoying it. I'm enjoying taking the stuff that I do on a routine basis and sharing that, or finding a theme. Like the one column was all about very large models. And now the most recent one's about peanut models, or getting out there and flying models of your long lost friends who have left us, but you have some of their models in hand because their spouses gave them to you. Well, let's talk about getting them getting those models back to the field and flying them again. It's a real honor to do that, and it's a beautiful thing. And we've all shared that in our group locally, and it's just we did it this year at the Nets. We had an evening at the end of the FAC Nets in Geneseo. At the end of the evening one night, we had, I think, might have been 20 guys out there flying models of friends that have passed, and it was great. It was just, yeah. So yeah, I'm enjoying sharing all that kind of stuff and looking forward to seeing where it goes, because I really don't know. I don't know. Guys can certainly ask me or suggest things, but I'll milk it as long as I can. I'm going to keep talking. As long as I keep building and flying, I've got something to talk about. And as long as my friends are doing the same. I mean, this year at Geneseo, oh my gosh, there was some great things that were happening that I hadn't seen before. There were some gassies. Guys were flying. Doug Beardsworth flew his DH-4 gassy, and man, free flight, just brilliant, just beautiful. Vance Gilbert was flying Farman, big Farman biplane, just beautiful. And it stopped the contest, So can I not talk about that in a column? No.
Right.
I'm going to bring that up. That's going to be one of the first things you're going to see. So,
well, and I watched your Geneseo video from this year on your channel.
So yeah, all of that is there.
You can see Vance and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not going to be hard. You think, well, what kind of content? What can I write about? But it's a breeze. So I'm really pleased to be that guy to help out the magazine and to share what we all come to know in the Flying Aces Club, that this is a great hobby and that we need to get more kids involved, because they don't know what they're missing out on, quite frankly. And I'm glad my little granddaughter is getting a part of it, but it needs to be tenfold, really does.
Yeah, well, we appreciate your contributions to the magazine and look forward to seeing you out next week. We've taken up about the hour. Is there anything else you want to share while we're chatting?
Not that I can think of. I have no idea what I'm going to be building next. Not a clue. That's a great feeling, because I'll be coming to Muncie and going to the museum and looking for inspiration. I mean, I've started another glider, but then I got the bug for the Brunelli.
Oh, yeah.
And then that happened. And then I couldn't resist. So we'll see if I go back to that. Another guy gave me an old kit, scientific, the 20-inch high flyer series. He gave me a Waco A kit in pristine shape. And that might be my next model, just to get back into flying models from the 1930s that my dad would have flown. That's always a great buzz. So that might be on the list, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, there were 6 other Brunellis that were part of that concept sketches that they had. So maybe there's another one in my future. I don't know. Who will be the first to build a peanut Brunelli lifting body? Don't think it'll be me, but somebody will, I'm sure. So,
well, we'll be excited to see in your column and on your YouTube channel what it is that you build next. I appreciate, like I said, all you do for the magazine. Appreciate you coming on the show. I do want to mention that our next show would normally be October 18th, but that actually falls on my birthday, and I will be on vacation that entire week. So we will not have a show, unfortunately, next month, but we'll pick it back up in November. And look forward to seeing you next week. And
hopefully not in the corn. Okay.
Yeah, not in the corn. And see all the viewers with another show in November. So thanks everyone for watching.